Engaged at 22, I'm drowning in wedding chaos. The wedding is for the parents, he insists, while I'm left planning everything alone. After countless fights, I wonder, am I settling for a life with someone who treats me like a burden? Should I call it quits? I'm a 22-year-old female and he is a 28-year-old male. We met in August 2023 and quickly began dating. I even had the chance to meet his parents on our first date, which was quite endearing and amusing. It was the best first date ever. We swam in a waterfall, enjoyed coffee, went on an adventure, and ended the evening at his home sauna with ice cream. The date lasted about 8 hours, and he expressed interest in pursuing a serious relationship. He was incredibly respectful, to the point that I initially wondered if he might be gay, because he hardly made any physical moves until I took the initiative. By Thanksgiving, which I hosted for my friends, he helped me organize it and we exchanged our I love yous. The relationship appeared perfect. I shared everything about my past and he did the same. The only issue arose when he said he was going out with friends, invited me along, and then revealed during the car ride that we were actually meeting his ex-girlfriend and her new boyfriend, along with another friend. This was his first girlfriend from when they were both 16, his first everything, including intimacy. Let's call her Gabriella. I was not comfortable with the situation. Even though they were just friends, I found it strange, especially because I did not receive any prior warning. Gabriella's boyfriend also seemed uneasy. I had a significant problem with it. My trust felt compromised. I contemplated ending the relationship, but we discussed it and I chose to stay. We began discussing marriage. He initiated the conversations, along with topics like having children and timelines. He did not want to wait. Then he traveled to see his grandmother in Europe for over a month, spanning Christmas and New Year's. I stayed home but took a short trip with friends nearby. It was tough being alone and I missed him. When he returned, his demeanor had changed. He did not seem eager to rush into marriage anymore. I reached the same conclusion, but it still stung to hear it from him. He appeared distant. I also disliked that he made this decision without consulting me. However, over time, things seemed to improve. In February, we attended an event where we encountered another of his exes. She was uncomfortably friendly, trying to dance with me and offering numerous compliments. Strangely, it alleviated some tension but also resurfaced issues regarding his exes. We planned to travel that summer. I expressed a desire to go to Europe and he initially agreed but later retracted, stating he needed to spend time with his grandmother. He insisted he could not spend less than 3 weeks helping her in his village. He also said he had to be present for his friend's birthday, which later turned out to be on an incorrect date. He had mixed it up. Essentially, he was fixated on his trip and refused to compromise. I tried to plan everything to accommodate him, but he remained unyielding. Eventually, we decided to go to his homeland for an entire month. He promised that next time we would go to Europe, which worked out since my brother ultimately got married there too. For the record, I paid for my own tickets and everything else. We compromised on visiting another city, quite far from his village, for a while, but every day became a struggle to make that happen. We went, and it was very enjoyable. However, we also fought quite a bit. During the trip, I discovered he was messaging nearly all his exes or still in contact with many of them, Gabriella and another girl he had casually hooked up with back home. He followed all his exes on social media, where they would like and comment on each other's posts. I despised it. It affected my mood negatively. He was also very moody about anything I wanted. Essentially, he counted down the days until he could return to his grandmother. It was difficult. Whenever he became tired, he would get angry and treat me as though everything was my fault. He intended to propose during the trip, but the moment never arrived. There were enjoyable moments. I tried to maintain a positive atmosphere, but I grew weary as well. When we returned, his parents suggested we go camping across the country, and we booked it. We had a significant argument because I was fed up with his communication with other girls. Additionally, he would not text me first, would not ask me out on dates, and would rarely come to see me. I might see him once a week or less, and he seemed indifferent. However, he had no issue going to play video games with his friend. I asked him to come back and talk with me, but he said it was not urgent and that he would see me the next day. That night, I informed him I was breaking up with him. The following day, he appeared, apologizing and refusing to accept the breakup. He persuaded me into going on the trip. The drive took 2 days, absolute torture. He constantly complained about driving. It was horrible, filled with non-stop arguments. We finally arrived. I wanted to end things. I was exhausted. The trip felt ruined, yet another one wasted. During the trip, he took me out on a date, showing me around, and then on the beach he proposed to me. I do not know why I said yes. We had tough times, really difficult moments, but we also shared genuinely good times. We drove home the next day, but the mood was off. I tried my best to appear excited and happy. He continued to complain about driving, albeit less than before. Initially, he did not want to inform his parents of our engagement, claiming they would become overly excited. I insisted we call them. I began informing my family and friends. His family was kind to me, everyone appeared to be happy. For the next 2 months, things went relatively smoothly, no arguments. Then his parents became heavily involved. His mother found a venue and began pushing hard for it. I was not pleased, but we visited it anyway. It was inexpensive but required a significant amount of work, which would have cost as much as another, nicer venue. He disagreed, resulting in an argument. From the beginning, all I ever wanted was to elope. He insisted that the wedding was about making his parents happy, that was the purpose of it. My parents were relaxed about it. His mother aggressively opposed my plan for a 2-year engagement. She even convinced my parents to support rushing the wedding. Each day began to feel like a nightmare, and eventually I caved. We settled on a June wedding. They preferred winter or May, but that felt too rushed. I did all the research, found a venue that suited his outdoor vibe and budget. It was slightly over budget, but still incredibly cheap compared to the wedding market. Then began the disputes over guest counts. We fought once more about his exes. He helped Gabriella's parents again, maintaining secret contact without informing me. I was fed up. He promised there would be no further issues regarding that. He did not seem to comprehend why it was a significant concern. He even joked that if it were not for me, Gabriella would have been his groomsgirl. We reconciled. Then he decided his parents would have complete control over the guest list, literally not providing me with any names or telling me who they were inviting. There was no limit. I pleaded for a total of 50 guests to keep expenses down and because I dislike strangers. He refused, wanting a large wedding. We finally settled on a total of 70 guests, evenly split. Then he reneged on that agreement, allowing his mother to invite 60 people on their side alone. Gradually, the guest list continued to expand. He disregarded my preferences. I was often cast as the villain with no room for compromise. I was the one organizing everything. His mother began overstepping boundaries, agreeing with a baker for our wedding cake without consulting us, and purchasing me shoes and dresses she favored, which were unattractive. Once I shared photos of wedding dresses I had tried on, and she commented that I looked like a middle-aged divorcee and should seek affordable dresses on Shein or AliExpress. I cried. He spoke to her, but it was not particularly helpful. For context, I was covering the cost of my dress. The only financial concerns they expressed were about things I desired. The guest count had to accommodate everyone they wished to invite. It was minor issues every other day traditions imposed on us. Whenever I disagreed, I became the villain. I asked him to confront her, but his stance was that the wedding was intended for the parents. Meanwhile, I was still in university, planning the entire wedding, covering half if not more of the expenses, and receiving no assistance, only criticism. Months of this. Every so often, we argued about how he was neglecting me, remaining uninformed about the wedding, and accusing me of demanding expensive items, even though I was doing DIY work and keeping costs low. Then we disagreed again about when to have children. He wanted kids 1 year after the wedding. I wished to finish university my 5th year, gain a year of work experience, and achieve financial stability, not reside in his parents' house. He insisted he was the man and that I was not his equal, so he had the authority to make decisions, and I needed to abide by them. He does not earn much money because he is self-employed and dislikes office jobs. I wanted stability, I sought to feel secure. We had a massive argument, his parents intervened. I became intoxicated and revealed everything to them. How I was planning it all, paying for half, receiving no help, while he spent time playing video games. I declared he did not love me and that was acceptable, we could part ways. The following day, he was initially angry that I had spoken unflatteringly about him. I do not take pride in that, but they were facts, not insults. Then he apologized and vowed to change. For 3 weeks, he was an exceptional boyfriend. He did not shut me out when I cried. He cared about the wedding. He communicated his tardiness. He displayed affection I had never previously witnessed. But I felt emotionally drained. It hurt to see him finally doing what I had been pleading for months. Even now, he believes nothing has changed, that he has always behaved this way. Yet I find myself once again begging for basic needs. I inquire about when he will begin constructing the house extension so we could have space, and I am met with groans as if I am a warden rather than a partner. He still complains. It is a month before the wedding. I have cried every day for the past month. I feel miserable. I do not believe I love him anymore. Even during good moments I feel numb, I resent him. Now even when he performs kind gestures, I struggle to appreciate them. I do not know what to do. So many people are invited, it feels incredibly embarrassing to walk away now. I attempted to discuss how I dislike living with his parents, how negative and irritated they are, and how I have no space for my belongings in his room, but nothing changes. He is only nice when he perceives I might actually live. I am frightened I am lost, please help me understand this situation. Story 2. My 21st year turned into a whirlwind when I lost my best friend in an accident, leaving me devastated. My boyfriend's restrictions kept me isolated, leading me to seek friendship elsewhere. I just wanted someone who cared. I found myself with a guy friend and now I question, was it cheating? It all began 2 summers ago when I was in Brazil with my boyfriend. My best friend from childhood tragically passed away in an accident, which was incredibly difficult for me. I was deeply saddened and felt immense guilt because I had not spoken to him or responded to his texts for the previous 3 months, as my boyfriend had told me I was not permitted to communicate with any other men, including my old friends. I left Brazil to attend the funeral, and my boyfriend was upset that I had gone as his family lived in Brazil and I was supposed to be there to be with them. However, I felt I had no choice but to attend. I distinctly remember feeling as though my boyfriend did not grasp the severity of the situation. Losing my friend was devastating. During that time, I felt incredibly alone and was in significant emotional pain. My boyfriend and I argued frequently while he was in Brazil and I was back home. I expressed to him that I felt he did not care for me. He replied that he was trying to enjoy his time with his family, which I understood since he rarely saw them. Nevertheless, we experienced a lot of tension, and amidst my emotional turmoil, I ended up threatening to break up. While we often threatened this in the past, it was never serious. This time, however, he actually agreed. I insisted that I was just angry and, as usual, assumed we would work things out. But this time felt different. He called me and conveyed that he was uncertain about how our relationship would continue and mentioned wanting his children to be with his family in Brazil one day. This devastated me. I had never experienced such pain. I was unable to eat, lost 15 pounds, and could not sleep. It was genuinely the lowest point I had ever encountered, fearing I would lose him. We eventually resolved things, but I was left with an overwhelming fear. Before this incident, I believed we were on the verge of engagement that summer and I thought he would propose. Then came the possibility of a breakup. He would tell me he did not want that, but for the first time I was not truly convinced that he wanted me. When he returned to the United States, things felt awkward. I was consumed by worries that he might leave me, and I was also sad that we were not yet engaged. When we returned to our respective colleges, everything remained strange between us. I felt insecure about whether he truly wanted me, which intensified my anxiety and made me feel as though I was annoying him. Additionally, it was my senior year of college and things had drastically changed on campus. My best friend and former roommate moved off campus and I rarely saw her. My sister, who was my current roommate, was constantly with her boyfriend. Many of my close friends had graduated, leaving me feeling extremely isolated. I vividly recall eating alone in my dorm every day, feeling like an outsider and a loner, as if something were inherently wrong with me. After losing my best friend in the car accident, I genuinely felt I had no one to spend time with. While I had my boyfriend to text and call, I had no one on campus to be with. I had always struggled with concerns about how I presented myself to the world. I did not want to be perceived as a girl with no social circle or friends. Therefore, I decided to make an effort to connect with others. I prayed to God to help me form friendships, but still nothing seemed to materialize. Most of the girls on campus appeared to have established social circles. As a senior, I was no longer viewed as someone in need of involvement in small groups to make friends. I tried diligently to engage with others, but nothing seemed to stick. Being a relatively quiet person, I had always relied on others to approach me in order to form friendships, making the process of trying to initiate connections quite challenging. One day, while walking to class, a guy I had seen before introduced himself. He inquired about my name and major typical introductory questions. Later that day, I noticed he added me on Instagram. I accepted the request, thinking it was interesting. I know this might sound strange, but I have always assumed that when men do such things, they have a crush or some romantic interest. But considering I attended a Christian college, I thought he might just be friendly. As time passed, I posted an Instagram story about a Starbucks drink, inviting people to vote on which one was better. He commented that neither drink was superior, asserting that Dunkin' was better. I felt pleased that he had engaged with my post, viewing it as a sign that he was paying attention to me. We struck up a conversation during which I insisted that Starbucks was far superior. He mentioned that he had never tasted Starbucks, prompting me to suggest that we needed to visit so he could experience how much better it was than Dunkin'. I felt excited, believing this was my chance to forge a friendship. I have always found it easier to make friends with men than with women, as men generally are more straightforward about their friendships, often motivated by attraction. I assumed this situation was no different, thinking that perhaps he had a crush on me. Yet I found it curious because my Instagram was filled with pictures of my boyfriend and me, openly displaying our affection. Thus, I was uncertain of his intentions, especially since he could clearly see I was in a relationship. The next day, I was heading home for the weekend and decided to delete our messages, avoiding texting him during that time so that my boyfriend wouldn't get upset if he saw it. My boyfriend has expressed his disapproval of me having male friends and has become angry in the past if I texted any guy, even remotely. Upon returning that week, I texted this guy again, and he simply asked about my weekend. I felt excited at the prospect of having someone to hang out with on campus, someone who might be willing to spend time with me. I hoped he would want to be my friend. I remember chatting with him and he asked what I was up to. I mentioned that I was bored and studying. He invited me to study with him, to which I agreed, and I went to meet him. I recall putting on some makeup before we met because I did not want him to think I looked unattractive and that this would deter him from being my friend. We studied together, and he asked how my summer was. I told him it was terrible due to the loss of my best friend. I explained that things had also been difficult because of my relationship with my boyfriend. I shared this mix of truth and a desire to convey to him that I had a boyfriend while also subconsciously hoping it would endear him to me should he happen to like me. I was uncertain about his feelings toward me, but I was aware that many of my past male friends had harbored secret crushes on me, which was why they sought my friendship. I thought even if he only wanted to be friends because he secretly liked me, it would still be better than being alone. I knew I did not find him attractive and had no intention of dating him, so I did not believe I was doing anything wrong. I was confident that I would never leave my boyfriend for him or breach any boundaries, like flirting or any physical interactions. I figured that if he had even a slight crush, perhaps his affection would lead him to want to maintain our friendship, provided I ensured I did not reciprocate those feelings. During our conversation, he expressed his sympathy, and I realized I had started crying without intending to. Discussing my past made me feel emotional, and I felt foolish for being so vulnerable, but it had been a tremendously tough period in my life. He hugged me goodbye, likely feeling pity for me. Later, I texted him to apologize for crying and breaking down during our conversation. He assured me it was fine and mentioned he was glad to support me. I assumed he was just being kind and empathetic since he is a Christian. A few days later, I saw him getting coffee on campus and we struck up another conversation. I was thrilled to have someone to share a cup of coffee with. We discussed various topics and I introduced him to one of my female friends. He opened up about his family and I inquired about his celebrity crushes after asking him what his type was in order to suggest my friend to him. He reciprocated by asking me about my preferences, and I wondered if he was doing this because he liked me. I made sure to avoid flirting during our discussion. Subsequently, I invited him to get Starbucks after class. He agreed and offered to pick me up. During the ride, he chatted casually about his background before asking how things were going with my boyfriend. I shared some of my concerns, fully aware that revealing my issues might give him hope for a potential breakup. But I was certain I would never leave my boyfriend, so I felt justified in sharing my thoughts. I appreciated having someone who listened and showed me attention, and I consistently emphasized that I loved my boyfriend and could not consider ending our relationship. This was the truth, and I allowed myself to dramatize my concerns, making them seem more critical than they genuinely were because I knew I wanted to be with my boyfriend and marry him. Part of my frustration with my boyfriend stemmed from my desire for him to propose already, as I was eager to marry him. At no point did I question my commitment to him. Again, I mentioned my female friend to this guy, hoping he would see I was attempting to set him up with someone else. I gauged his reaction to see if he expressed interest, but he simply said he liked her. I worried that if they began dating, I would find myself in the same predicament I had faced before, where he would spend all his time with her, leaving me isolated once more. This brought me sadness, not because I wanted to date him, but because if he were in a relationship, I would be left without friends again. When he paid for my coffee, I found it somewhat strange, though my previous male friends had done the same. While sitting and enjoying our drinks, I accidentally spilled some coffee on my hand, and he wiped it off with his finger, which struck me as odd, but I enjoyed the fact that he cared. I think I was craving human connection and affection profoundly. I did not find him attractive. He was the antithesis of my type. He also offered me his jacket when we left because it was cold, but I declined, feeling that such an act was only appropriate for my boyfriend. Instead, I placed it on my hands in the car to avoid being rude. I even attempted to set him up with another friend at one point. I envisioned him and my boyfriend meeting at some point, wanting them to become friends, yet I hesitated, not wanting my boyfriend to react negatively to my friendship with a male. During one conversation, I sent him the softball roster since I am on the softball team and asked which player he would be interested in. He responded that none of the girls were really his type, which led me to think perhaps he genuinely did not find me attractive. Most of my male friends would have stated their interest in one of them, indicating I was off limits. I felt disheartened at first, but then reassured myself that it did not matter. The following week, I told my boyfriend everything that had occurred. I had researched online whether having a male friend was inappropriate, and I kept finding messages that suggested keeping it a secret was wrong, which prompted me to come clean. I did not want to do anything wrong or hurt my boyfriend. I deeply loved him but was simply craving a friend during this period. I also considered that if my boyfriend and I were to break up, I would not want to date this friend, but having someone supportive would be nice. To be honest, I found this guy friend unattractive, and upon reflection, I recognized that I did not genuinely care about him as a person. I did not pay attention to what he said, I simply appreciated the attention he gave me. Once I confided in my boyfriend, I immediately cut off contact with this guy. I realized that I did not mind the end of the friendship. It didn't hurt to eliminate him from my life at all. I have since struggled with fear because I had read about cheating. At no point did I think I was crossing any lines because in my mind I felt I was maintaining boundaries, yet now I am consumed by worry. Over the past year, I have been in turmoil, waking up every morning troubled by the fear that I have cheated. This fear has plagued my thoughts every second of every day. Story 3. Charged with a horrific crime I didn't commit, I'm stuck in a nightmare. I didn't do it, I told the cops. 8 months in jail and my life shattered, but now a kid's testimony might prove my innocence. Can I finally escape this hell? I do not know how to begin this, but I need assistance. I have been accused of something terrible. I will provide some context to help you understand the situation. My mother operated a babysitting service at our home. One morning, I woke up and went to see my mother. The living room is located across from my mother's room, so I had to pass through there. The children were usually sleeping in the living room. That's when I noticed a girl who had not been with us for about 2 to 3 months. I do not know where she went. My mother had been babysitting her for approximately 3 to 4 years, so she grew up with us, and we had a good relationship. I observed that she was strangely positioned on the couch, so I picked her up and moved her. Then I went to check on what my mother was doing. She was folding clothes at that time. Her right hand was not functioning properly, so I was helping her around the house. That day her hand felt better. I asked if she needed assistance. She replied no look, and started moving her wrist slightly back and forth to show me that she was all right. After that, we engaged in small talk and I left. Shortly after, I made myself a sandwich. We lived in a small house, so the kitchen was right next to the living room. While in the kitchen, I looked to see if any children needed help. For context, there were 6 kids in the living room. 2 of them were toddlers. The toddlers were awake watching television while the other 4 were asleep at that time. I checked to see if the toddlers needed milk or a snack. One of them was a little older and loved snacking. Afterward, I checked on the other 4 and they were sleeping well considering the limited space on the 2 couches. I ate my sandwich in the kitchen, and before going to my room, I checked on the kids once more. I saw that the girl I had moved had shifted to the edge of the couch, prompting me to move her again, but this time she woke up. I apologized and asked if she needed anything. She expressed that she wanted her blanket, so I provided it for her. I asked if she wanted her tablet. She had that tablet or iPad for a long time. I can't remember very well, but I think she could call on it because she had WhatsApp, though I am not certain. She replied affirmatively. The other children were doing fine. One of the 2 toddlers fell asleep, while the other 3 remained asleep. At that moment, I thought they were all asleep, but apparently that was not the case. I went to my room to play Elden Ring or whatever game I was playing at the time. My mother finished what she was doing and came out just as I was leaving. That was the extent of my interaction with the children. If my mother did not ask for help, I remained in my room. My mother's hand was improving, so she did not require assistance. Shortly thereafter, my sister arrived. This was the first and last time I interacted with that girl. A full day passed without any issues, and then her father arrived to pick her up. Shortly after, her mother came and began screaming at my mother, alleging that I had touched her daughter inappropriately and exposed my private parts. I will spare you the profanity and crude language. I told my mother that I did not do it. Subsequently, the parents and the daughter went to the doctor. The doctor confirmed she was fine, and afterward they filed a police report. A police officer came to my house and asked questions. I reiterated that I did not do it. I was understandably nervous. It was a police officer after all. He left, giving me his card to call if I needed to, and told us he would be in contact. After that, everything became a blur. Child Protective Services visited and spoke to us and the children who were present during the incident. They asked us and the children various questions. Later, I learned that they did not even question the children who were there. They asked them only 4 questions. This will be significant later. Afterward, I spoke with a detective. I repeated that I did not do it over and over again. He asked me about my past, which included an incident involving a teacher many years ago who took advantage of me and distorted it to get me into trouble. I was a nonverbal autistic child, so it was not difficult to manipulate the situation. I did not understand what was happening to me at the time, and now it is too late to rectify it. I was present for 2 hours explaining everything to him. Of course, I was reasonable. If it were my child or nephew, I would want justice, but back then I was very naive. When the detective asked me if I wanted to take a lie detector test, I agreed without hesitation. I did not know much about them at the time, but I now realize it was all nonsense. I saw a lawyer discussing this on TikTok and he said, "It does not matter. If they think you are guilty, you are guilty." I entered, and they tried to create a false scenario to either ease me in or intimidate me, I suppose. They told me they had someone scheduled for that day, but at the last moment that person canceled. Even though the detective and I had scheduled it for that day days earlier, it did not make sense, truly a ridiculous situation. After 7 hours of interrogation, the individual administering the test became very angry, expressing that I was not performing correctly or something similar. I am on the autism spectrum, but I am high functioning. Despite this, I do not handle yelling or confrontation well. Nevertheless, I never admitted to doing anything because I did not, only stating that I was playing with them like an older brother would. If you have ever had an older brother, you understand what I mean. Later, they noted in the report that I did not fully deny it, which I had done for 7 hours. After all of that, they asked for my phone. I could have refused, but I did not have anything to hide, so I surrendered it to them. All I had was a collection of TikToks I had saved over the past 2 years, which was how long I had owned the phone, so searching through it took 1 to 2 more hours. I was lost without my phone, unable to leave until they finished. It is absurd that I had lived in this town for 19 years and could not even direct you to the nearest McDonald's. But unsurprisingly, they did not find anything. And consequently, there was nothing regarding my phone included in the report since I had nothing to hide. Yes, I should have obtained a lawyer, but I did not believe it would escalate this far. I was naive and arrogant, thought I was invincible, and believed that if I told the truth, everything would resolve itself, but that was not the case. A few weeks passed before the detective contacted me, indicating that he wanted to speak with me at my house. I was anxious but insisted on staying. I was indeed foolish and naive. The police surrounded my home. My arrest was calm, and I did not resist or express anger because I struggle with emotions and such matters. Fast forward 3 months in jail, I had to reduce my bond. My original bond was $300,000. I do not recall the exact amount it was reduced to, but it was sufficient for my family to bail me out. However, I had to wear an ankle monitor and could not return home since the victim and her family lived in the same neighborhood. I lived with my aunt and uncle. The first few months were manageable, but as time passed, I began to feel increasingly miserable. I could not bear to look at their faces because I felt as though they were judging me. I could not even step out of my room due to how awful I felt. It was an unpleasant experience, and honestly, I have only endured it this long because my family has continued to encourage me, assuring me that everything will be okay, but I am uncertain. Around 8 to 10 months later, my aunt and uncle informed me that it was time for me to leave. I do not blame them. I felt like a burden and unwelcome presence in their home, consuming their resources and wallowing in my despair. I moved into a small recreational vehicle, left wondering what the future held. And apparently the family of the alleged victim dealt with a bomb scare outside their home. It was chaotic. Naturally, detectives came and spoke with me. They searched my recreational vehicle but found nothing, which was no surprise, right? I told them I was wearing an ankle monitor and that if they wished to verify my whereabouts, they could check. Following that, they followed my brother as I was working with him and again found nothing. It was astonishing. There were big rumors circulating that his in-laws claimed he was involved with the cartel or something. Of course, all of this is unverified. Now back to the story. My lawyer informed me that the plea deal offered was to place me on probation for 10 to 20 years, but I would have to register as a sex offender for the remainder of my life. I thought all hope was lost until a couple of days ago when my lawyer considered interviewing one of the children who was present. Apparently, the CPS officer did not question him extensively because when my lawyer questioned him, he stated that he was awake during the alleged incident and saw nothing occur. That sounds promising, right? However, my lawyer explained that since the child could not pinpoint the exact date, it could still be questionable. Consequently, my mother will have to testify that he was present. My lawyer and I have discussed my mother testifying numerous times. Even then, my lawyer is not confident that we would win. He also mentioned that there was another offer on the table that would entail 6 years of probation and 10 years of registration. It seems that the law can sometimes feel like a high-stakes game. So here I am a year later with evidence that I did not do it, still contemplating what I should do. Story 4. At 30, I realized I was told to put your trust in the highest and to stop questioning my surroundings. But what if that trust is just another cage? Instead of freedom, I found a cruel cycle of conformity. Can we break free by questioning our blind faith? You know, people often discuss trust and faith, as if they are some kind of salvation, like if we simply surrender and release that small, whole piece of ourselves that remains, everything will be fine. Place your trust in the highest, they say. Surrender to something more significant than yourself, even greater than our society, and all your fear and struggles will dissipate. But here's the question, does it? The irony is that trust, that higher trust they often mention, ultimately becomes the very thing that traps us. It is not freedom, it is merely another form of control. We are told that if we trust, truly trust, if we surrender, if we let ourselves go, if we give ourselves up, if we cease to question everything, that is when we will discover the highest peace within us. But what sort of peace arises from silencing the voice of your own soul and accepting others' views as they are? When you are told you are broken, when you are informed that your struggles are your fault, and that the only way to cease them is to accept someone else's truth, that ultimately it was your fault, what do you do with that? You accept it. That is the irony. Your resistance to the narrative, the one that seeks to place blame on you for not conforming to society, becomes your acceptance that, well, it must have indeed been your fault after all. You do not question it because questioning, they assert, is part of the problem that can be remedied through great gulps of self-blame. You simply have to trust. And in that trust, you become a cog in a machine that keeps on turning, grinding you down to a mere imitation of your true human potential. The truly alarming aspect is that, through that narrative, fault is transformed into merit, the slave becomes a king, and withdrawal from society turns you into the scapegoat, the sacrificial lamb, the offering on the altar of blind faith. That is what it is. And that is the significant catch that ensnares you, at last. Trust, when extended thoughtlessly, evolves into blind faith. Faith devolves into nothing but blind acceptance of the world, regulated by divine intervention, through complex theories too imperfectly justified by, well, blind acceptance once again, based on the vague presence of some God-willing spirit. You cease to question, even when that very questioning impedes your quest to uncover the right causes, the ones that would make our theory of being sensible, not just based on belief, but also on observation, critical thinking, intuition, and vision. Higher trust represents a self-preserving form of faith that conservatively asserts you are the problem for not fitting in, for questioning the world as it is. And when you are worn down, exhausted, reduced to a pile of your own misery, still somehow holding on to the lifeline of your resistance, looking broken people come along and say, "It's fine, you simply need to trust. Just put your faith in the higher power and all of this will become clear." Worse still, they do this when you are struggling to be yourself in the clothing of your own choosing, trying earnestly to pull it together. But no one ever explains what that truly means when they entice you in. They do not convey to you that by trusting blindly, you are not liberating yourself. You are merely relinquishing your freedom to someone else's interpretation of the truth. And that is the perilous aspect. You believe you are choosing freedom, but in reality, you are simply selecting another box to inhabit. Someone else's perfect box. The result of their individual experiences, dictated verbatim, shaped over the years by collective effort. Someone else's walls, someone else's regulations. A further barrier extending around you and your freedom. And when you begin to recognize it, it is too late. You have ensnared yourself again in the trap of your own insecurity, exploited by those who uphold inequality. Just another iteration of it that you were previously oblivious to. When you come to realize that the way you have been instructed to trust has led you to this trap, it feels like awakening in a room full of individuals just like yourself. But they do not belong to themselves. They are sitting there akin to clones, not a community merely engaging in the same actions, repeating the same phrases, adhering to the same protocols, serving someone else's interests. And you understand, it is not freedom. It is merely conformity. The same old routine. The real ironies. We have been told for so long that the struggle is internal, that it revolves around fixing something within us. But the struggle is not internal, is it? The struggle has always been external. The world, the system, the powers that be, they are the ones shaping us, molding our fears, our guilt, our insecurities. And yet they want us to believe it is our fault, that we merely need to trust in a higher power, accept it, and everything will be fine. But that is not the answer. That is simply another version of the same problem, another layer of the same stratified society, repackaged and marketed to you as something more spiritual, more meaningful, more sensible, more enlightened. You will never escape the machine if you persist in accepting the same truth repeatedly. And that is what makes this blind faith so perilous. It keeps you ensnared in the looping, vicious cycle of believing the problems are yours to solve, that they reside within you, that you are faulty, broken, and in need of assistance. It instructs you to surrender to a higher truth. But the only truth it provides is one that maintains you right where you are, exhausted, questioning, trapped, unfulfilled, and still bound by the same chains. So here is the reality. It is not about requiring more faith or trust. It is about breaking the cycle. It is about stepping outside the box and posing the difficult questions, thinking for ourselves, allowing varied interpretations of truth to ignite discussions that free us, rather than imprison us further. It is about recognizing that the true fracture does not lie within ourselves. It exists in the world that tells us our individual pain is our fault. It resides in that mutually exclusive world that prevents us from perceiving the truth. That genuine freedom does not stem from surrender. It emerges from perpetual questioning, never ceasing to ask questions. It comes from resistance. It arises from the choice to break free from the systems that attempt to control us, supporting each other's freedom by allowing one another to follow our own paths, bound only by the understanding that we depend on each other at a fundamental level. But that individual freedom is the personal counterpart of our collective responsibility, a whole that shatters if we impose our own truths upon one another through force or emotional manipulation. And my friend, the greatest irony of all is this. They tell you that trust is the path to liberation. But the truth is, sometimes the only way out is to cease trusting blindly and begin perceiving the world for what it truly is. For real freedom arises from resisting the problems of inequality, understanding that your strength resides in the highly sensitive nature of your mental health, the only remaining free aspect of your being, vulnerable precisely because it does not conceal itself, nor does it hide away, donning thick protective armor merely to stay safe. In this, your mental strength represents the realization that your mind embodies the secret of your freedom as long as you safeguard it and keep it open. Without individual openness, there is no genuine collective safety. Story 5. At 16, I struggle with obesity and overwhelming loneliness. No one understands my pain, I lament, while my friends compare their breakups to my daily battles. Every judgment cuts deep, and the guilt from emotional eating only adds to my shame. Will I ever be seen? I will write this as a list in no particular order, just as thoughts come to my mind. Point 1 will clarify this. To provide some context, I am a mid-teen male struggling with obesity and all the mental challenges that accompany it. I am not diagnosed with any eating disorders or mental health issues. I have never undergone testing and have not seen a psychiatrist or therapist. 1. This point will become clearer as you read further down the list. To summarize this point, I cannot think of how to express or articulate any of my worries or problems. I can spend a considerable amount of time contemplating how to say things but can never find the words, which is why I am creating a list. I could spend nights thinking over some of the most profoundly saddening aspects of myself or experiences I have faced, yet I often just sit there blankly, unable even to cry while I feel my heart breaking, beating in my head. I have spent so many nights crying that I have run out of tears. Other matters unrelated to myself can still make me cry, but I cannot recall the last time I wept while tearing myself apart internally, not physically. This situation is further exacerbated by the next point. 2. One of the most difficult aspects is that people do not understand what I go through, not in a self-pitying or attention-seeking manner. Every time I talk to someone I trust about it, it feels as if they are implying that because I am overweight, I caused it myself and should just accept it since I have the ability to change it. While I do not intend to compare my experiences with bullying or anything else to another person's, whenever I talk to my close friends about it, I feel as though they impart this sentiment. For instance, my friend might sit there crying over something that has happened and I would comfort them, trying to help them through it. Yet when I attempt to do the same and begin to share my feelings, I can sense their eyes judging me. With some people, they even say things like, but you do not know the feeling of a breakup or rejection, as if they are comparing their experiences to mine, not considering all the little rejections I face daily, even from them excluding me and so forth. I know this may make it seem like I have toxic friends, but nearly everyone I have discussed this with has given me similar responses, or they deliver phrases like "suck it up" in a nicer way. Even teachers whose job is to assist me have made me feel this way. What makes this situation even worse is that I have attempted to express these feelings to my friends, but they either brush me off or respond with comments like, "Wow, so you are comparing us," which is not my intention. Even now, with friends I know will at least listen, I have lost all ability and willingness to open up to anyone, and that is why I am writing this. 3. I hope this point will be shorter. Almost every time I have tried to open up or confront someone about matters, I manage to convey my main idea, but then my mind goes blank. For example, while writing this, I thought of many points, but they have already slipped my mind and my head is spinning in circles. 4. Whenever I receive a comment regarding my weight or similar topics, I end up thinking about it for the entire day. These thoughts accumulate to the point where I bottle them up and push them so far back in my mind that I will have weeks where I feel motivated, happy, and indifferent towards all the negativity. But then other weeks where I feel so sad and empty that I cannot even speak, sleep, eat, or be productive at all. 5. Not to sound self-centered, but often I feel I am too nice to some people, as I am always there for them yet never for myself. I will text first and wait hours for a reply, but no one ever reaches out to me first unless they want something from me that offers little benefit to me. 6. Comments and bullying are so commonplace in my life that I almost always make jokes about them, or jokes are made at my own expense for a quick laugh. I first realized how problematic this was while talking to another person of my size. When I made those jokes, they would laugh, but then they would suddenly ask why I did that. Honestly, I have no idea. It just makes me loathe myself more. 7. At times, it becomes overwhelming to the point that I start to believe that I did not bring this upon myself, and that I deserve it. 8. There have been numerous instances where I trusted my friends, but they turned their backs on me after I helped them through a messy breakup. For example, only to reconcile and blame me for everything. I was never involved, apart from supporting them. 9. Most of the time I communicate with my friends, I have the sense that I am bothering them. 10. Recently, I discovered that one of my most trusted friends went behind my back to speak poorly about me to a group of people who associate with her mainly because of her attractiveness. 11. The same person once sat crying to me, expressing that she would never be enough for anyone and that no one would ever like or treat her well. The last person she was with, she broke his heart twice. He genuinely treated her well and desired her for her personality rather than her looks. She also complained about not being pretty enough and that no guy wanted her when the next day she began flirting with a guy she had never spoken to before, who immediately showed interest in her. I do not wish to sound as though I am comparing situations, but this conversation occurred shortly after I conveyed to her that no girl has ever given me a chance or even acknowledged me. 12. Shifting the topic slightly, I want to address my eating issues. I do not wish to label it as a disorder since I have never been tested or diagnosed, and I am not trying to seek attention. Most of the time, I eat until I feel as though I will explode. Then I spend hours in bed feeling sick about how much I consumed while still feeling hungry. I also experience situations where I intend to eat a bowl of cereal, thinking that won't hurt anyone, only to end up consuming 2 bowls and feeling extremely guilty and upset with myself for doing that. I also tend to eat due to emotional stress and when I am bored. Additionally, I must eat before going to bed or I cannot sleep. Yet when I do eat, the same guilt overcomes me. 13. I often get excluded from simple activities like going out. However, sometimes when I ask if they mind if I join, they respond with, "You can if you want," which I sometimes take as a cue to ignore their offer because it makes me feel almost unwanted and that they feel sorry for me. 14. I generally wear baggy clothing since I do not like how I look, and it helps to conceal that to some extent. I will conclude here. Thank you for reading, and I do not wish to come across as an attention seeker. Venting to anonymous people on the internet is my last resort. If you have any questions or would like me to address anything further, please feel free to ask, even if it is a bit personal. Again, thank you for reading.